Greetings and welcome back, everybody. Today is the 31st of October, 2021. I'm joined here with Michael on session 63. And I'm looking at the title, Michael, and this is looking very interesting since we covered the occult pendulum and, of course, all of the subject matter around oh boy, I forget. There's just so much to keep in one's brain, Michael. It's almost dizzying. But today is Reformation Day, of course, the day that we mark Martin Luther bringing his 95 Thesis attack on the church right on All Saints Day, which is a very fitting day for an attack on the church. He was very wise to choose this day. And I gladly would like to celebrate this as a Reformation Day, Michael. So welcome back, Michael.
Yeah, hi, Brad. Thanks for having me again. 63. Wow. In that short period of time, actually. Yeah, you know what Science SJ stands for. Yeah, we got the Reformation Day today.
Society Jesu.
Yeah, Are you really sure it's SJ, Society Jesu? Maybe it's the Society of Judas.
Oh, wouldn't that be something? That sounds more fitting, actually.
In German, there's an abbreviation of SJ. SJ means smart guys. Yeah, so they say in German, they say schlaue Jungs.
Smart.
SJ, they said schlaue Jungs. So S for schlau means clever, and J for Jungs means boys. Yeah, so smart boys would be the abbreviation. But it's just a way of words here. It's just that we have discovered that there are so many ties to and from the Jesuits, because the Jesuits are walking to and from the earth, it seems.
Sure.
In the agenda of the Antichrist to fight the Reformation, so their so-called counter-Reformation, or in short, the Concile von Trent, the Council of Trent, took a lot of years, so they could have made many plans, and we have discovered that they took over the educational system, schools, universities, and all the science. And therefore, before we are losing it by going into every nitty-gritty of a scientist, famous or not, we could go into Mr. Maxwell, we can go into this, that, etc. I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Let's have a summary of the events so that we just see what is all up with this scientist, because every time you look behind the curtain, so to speak, you discover there is some clergyman, some Jesuit, some Dominican, some who else behind the scene who is pushing kind of an agenda, and they just need a Patsy or what else? Oh, now I remember the word which I have looked. Yeah, sure. It's Stellvertreter. Stellvertreter. What is it? Deputy. Deputy. Representative. Representative I like. Proxy. 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 Is proxy positive or negative?
Oh,
none of it.
Good question. I would say pretty negative.
If you sell something which belongs to me, but you act as if it would belong to you, how would anybody name me? The person behind, or who else? I don't know. I cannot express this very much. Let's say.
Oh, like if say that again. If you own something or I own something, how
let's say these scientists are just the people appearing in the exoteric world. Yeah, so that these are the actors who are also getting the fame, prizes.
Yeah, like the Nobel Prize, sure.
Yeah, book recommendations, and they all get the fame, like Albert Einstein, etc. Yeah, like in the modern times, as we said in the last session, Obama. Yeah, everybody knows only Obama. What's his family name? Yeah, you see, Obama. It's just Obama, and he gets the Nobel Prize for Peace. But it isn't Obama who makes the American politics. You see, he's just one of many. So there are people behind the agenda pushing it so that Obama gets the reward. I see the faces behind. They are much more interesting. So that's welcome to Science SJ. Science with a special taste, special joy. Example that I chose was Agrippa, Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa, who at a very young age, beginning of 20, he wrote 3 occult books. There are 3 big books of occult philosophy. Where did he got all his science and knowledge and education from? Yeah, that's why he got a teacher, Johannes Trithemius. And these guys are the real authors behind, for example, Agrippa. And same goes for many, not all, but many of people, scientists, especially when they are doing it at a very young age. Remember, Brad, for example, if you are naming the Illuminati, that this Adam Weishaupt became a professor at the age of 24, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So you see that you cannot be wise and educated, etc., at the age of 24. Even if you are a genius, there are so many contents, so many things to combine, etc. So don't tell me that somebody at the age of 24, even is it so-called genius, yeah, has the same amount of knowledge as somebody who is nearly as good as him, but at the age of 60. It's like the same at the actual situation out there. You have to have experience. So that's why I came up with Agrippa, for example, on a special occasion, because he wrote this 3 books of occult philosophy. We can go into it's just very short. Yeah, it's just very short. I'll make it very briefly here. So I do it. It's a favor. I do it in English here. Yeah. So he published in 5033. And he began to study this occult philosophy. But published in 5033? No. I know that he has published it at a very young age. On April the 8th of 1510, he dedicated then the unpublished first draft. Yeah, 23 years before.
Ay.
So what was his age? No, that's why what I told you. 24. Yeah. 4086, 5010. In the age of 24, he dedicated the then unpublished first draft of the Occulta Philosophy. These are 3 books at the 5033 edition. I just wanted to point out that these guys do it not by accident or because they are genius. Yeah, he apparently took part in a secret society involved in the occult. Actually, it's more than that. Yeah, he received everything from his teachers and he combined the things. And don't forget that in 1450, the Mr. Johannes Gutenberg started the printing press. In that area, in that age, wanted to have books printed, because that was the newest kind of technology where you can spread out data and knowledge. It was books in 15th century. And so that was just mere 60 years after the book printing or the mass press, so to speak, started. So in 5010, he came up with the first edition. 5033, it was the big publishment here of the 3 books of occult philosophy. And then out of a sudden, in 1750 something, I don't know if it is in Wikipedia, a spurious 4th book of occult philosophy, sometimes called Old Magic Ceremonies, has also been attributed to him. This book first appeared in Marburg in 1559 after his death and is not believed to have been written by Agrippa. And what if I would tell you that my absolute inner belief is that he didn't wrote all the 3 books also? Yeah, he just summoned things that he got from his teachers. From somebody who is deep into the occult, I learned, I have heard, that they had a team of several people behind Agrippa. And that's what I believe is the case for many things. Because if you are publishing a book or a scientific research, you have people checking your records. You need people, not only ghostwriters, but you need people just to check for any errors, etc. So this goes into several people. I heard the rumor or what else, yeah, that there are several people behind Agrippa. And this is from the 15th or 16th century, respectively. So that is very, 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 very dangerous to go into this. This is one page of Agrippa, yeah, which is called Divine Magic. And the Latin did initiate sapientes on wise men, for the fear and worship of God is the beginning of knowledge. It sounds familiar, Sounds like the Bible. Yeah. And this is from the 4th book, yeah, Agrippa, 4th book. Yeah, I can show it. I can show it. Yeah, here. Yeah. So it's available online.
Yeah, but the key question here is which God?
Okay. But Magus, you want it, you got it. But Magus is a Persian word preeminently, whereby is expressed such as one is altogether conversant in things divine. I don't know, what else? And as Plato, you see, mixing everything together, as Plato affirmed, the art of magic is the art of worshipping God. As Plato affirmed it. Yeah, Plato. Greece. Yeah, Greece myths. Okay, the art of magic is the art of worshipping God. No, the art of magic is the art of worshipping pagan gods.
There we go.
And the Persians called their gods Magus. Hence, Apollonius' faith that Magus is either a kakaplulin, theos, so theo comes from God, Greece, or therapeutes, theon, that is, that Magus a name sometimes of him that is God by nature and sometimes of him that is in the service of God. Oh, sometimes is a God and sometimes is a servant of God. Ah, interesting. So there are many gods around.
Oh, Michael, I got to make a comment here. Agrippa appears in the book of Acts, and so does Magus. I should say Simon. Simon the sorcerer, which is Magus,
absolutely. Yes, I wanted to be some great man.
Yeah. Isn't that something?
So they are mixing everything together. So they must.
It's confusing, isn't it? Yeah.
No, it's absolutely not confusing. If you know that these people want to play God themselves, that's why they go into magic. They want to achieve powers. They want to achieve powers and abilities. That's why you go into magic.
Well, let's say this, Michael. If you are under the influence of something, I don't know what, and you can't think straight, then it is confusing. That's why we need to be sober-minded, everyone. All the brethren. Brethren, we need to be sober. Big call to the brethren. You know, we are to stand in our humility and be sober-minded, not drunk with the things of this world, right, Michael?
Yeah, and also we need to humble ourselves so that we do not get onto the path that we want to achieve something big or we want to be... what is it?
Yes, we ought to give credit where credit is due.
Yeah. We want in Acts 8. It is said about Simon Magus that he himself gave out that he was a great one.
Great one. That's right.
Yeah, and we are not.
He bewitched the people with sorcery. That's right.
Yeah, correct. And so that we do not want to be great ones of the earth. Yeah, so that we want to be very small and we want to give credit where credit is due. Yeah, so the credit is to God, the Creator, not on us. That we would not be able to think if God had not created us in the first place. So that who are we? We cannot be God. We cannot create anything. Therefore, they are switching and they are having their explanations, and also not only their explanations, but their I have to look for the words. Justification, yeah. They have to go to several philosophers and gods and religions and books, etc., to have their justification and say, oh, but it is written here and that is written there. But it's just mixing the holy with the profane, as Brett will absolutely confirm. And that's what he does here. And don't forget that he was supported by the church. He was supported by the church. He was not being burned at the stake or something about it, that he promoted magic. Yeah, he didn't. He was protected by the church, and he was being supported by the church. Let me tell you that. You see, there are so many. This Joseph Tritemius. We can look it up. I didn't want to go into this that much, but this Mr. Tritemius, we handled 20 sessions before. He was a German Benedict abbot. and a polymath who was active in the German Renaissance, etc., etc., etc. Yeah, he had considerable influence in the development of early modern and modern occultism. Yeah, because he was one of the authors of the books of Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa and Paracelsus.
There we go.
Where do you get all then your knowledge if there is no teacher? That's what I want to say, that Johannes Trithemius is one of the main sources of Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa. Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa did what? He just summoned everything up, because Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa wrote his book 60 years after the printing press started. So you got to scroll here, you got to scroll there, you got to scroll everywhere, and then you mix it together and you name your book and you write your name and your signature, Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa, and everybody knows, whoa, what a wise guy. And he gets all the credit. If you ask somebody about Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa, oh yes, I heard of it, he was a wise guy. Nobody knows Johannes Trithemius. And that's also on purpose. You just see the American president, you don't see the people behind it. Yeah, sometimes you see it, but you have to know who's behind it. So let's get back to the script. This is just, or let's get back to the PDF, so to speak. This is just, you see that mixing everything up. Magus is a Persian word primitively, where it is expressed such as one is altogether conversant or conversant, I don't know, in things divine. And as Plato, Vicalambe, Greek philosopher, affirmed, the art of magic is the art of worshipping God. Yeah, but Plato does not have any clue about Christianity, and Plato was not around when Jesus Christ was on the earth. So the art of magic is the art of worshipping pagan gods, which means Satan. The art of magic is the art of worshipping Satan. Simon Magus was a magus. And he wanted to have the power of the Holy Spirit. But he asked the apostles to pray for him, and he wanted to give them money. He wanted just to have the power. He didn't want to be decent, kind, loving, cheerful, helpful. No, so that either Kaka, Pulling, I don't know what, Theos is God, or Therapeutes, interesting, yeah, Therapeut, Theon, that is that Magus is a name sometimes of him that is God by nature and sometimes of him that is in the service of God. Aha, so if you are in the service of God, you are no God, you are just a servant. So if you have many gods, that's polytheism, or what is it? Polio in English?
Polytheism, yeah.
Polytheism, yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, that has nothing to do with Christianity. So mixing everything up, in which later sense it is taken in Mass, the second, when the wise men came to worship Jesus, and this is the first and highest kind, which is called divine magic, and these the Latins did this word here. I'm stumbling. This in title. Oh, okay. Sapientis, or wise men, for the fear and worship of God is the beginning of knowledge. Yeah, these wise men the Greeks call philosophers. Isn't that defined? Yeah, these wise men the Greek called philosophers.
Oh boy.
And among the Egyptians, they were called prophets, and the Hebrew called them Kabal, I cannot read it, prophets, scribes, and Pharisees, etc. And I cannot read it by Babylonian. What else? Babylonians, they were known by the name of Chaldeans, most likely.
Isn't that interesting, Michael? Yeah. I was thinking Pharisees the whole time, and I was sitting here on etymology online going, what was that word? Because I forgot. I lost my train of thoughts, and here I looked it up. Yeah, very interesting, Michael, from the Latin Church.
Yeah, and the Persians, they were called magicians, and one speaking of Saltinus or something like this, one of the ancient magicians with these words. Yeah, and now comes all in Latin. Yeah, the majesty of true God. Yeah, but who's the true God? You see, mixing everything up. You're mixing everything up, the wise men with Plato and the Greek philosophers and everything else. You see, that is Gnosis, actually. Actually, this is Gnosis. And that's also why you have in the Greek area, or in the Greek history, you have different kind of spells. But I'm not going into this because I want just to show you that I don't believe that Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa did anything but summon everything up, add all together, and write that book on the sources of his teachers. Yeah. Many of them, many of them. One of them most prominent, Johannes Trithemius, a Benedictine abbot, into the occult. A Benedictine abbot into the occult. That's absolutely logic, because it's these entire churches are occult, because on the outside they got the exoteric.
Here we go.
Yeah,
here we go, Michael.
Yeah.
Pharisee on Etymology Online, at the end of the paragraph here, it says, any self-righteous person, formalist, hypocrite, scrupulous or ostentatious observer of the outward forms of religion without regard to its inward spirit.
How do you spell that? Pharisees?
It's Pharisee. Yep.
SEE, so?
Correct.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, you see that bottom quote there on that paragraph?
This year? Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Without regard to its spirits and essence. So to do as expected, but it's just on the outside.
It's vainglory, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That's exactly just you know, they nail themselves. They're so they admit their own poison, you know.
Yeah, and all these people of his teachers said, John Dee, for example, claimed, and others claimed, they had revelation through angels, agreed that divine messengers, etc., and angels of the apocalypse were trustworthy sources of information for the ancient patriarchs. And you see that where do they got their inspiration from? All the science they got that from spirits. Yeah, and if you know that these people are looking for fame and fortune, you see that it's just no wonder that they got their information by evil spirits, because you only get famous in this world if you are in the Antichrist system, if you have Antichrist science. It's so easy. It's so easy. Antichrist music, Antichrist media, Antichrist science.
Yeah, they all work together.
They all work together.
Antichrist end, Counter-Reformation.
I'm not trying to offend any people, but you see that this concept.
Oh yes, the Illuminati card game, Michael.
The Illuminati card game. Yes, it is absolutely at the wrong place in that session here. But people laugh, but the flat earthers know something. Yes, they know something. They should know that the earth is not moving, but they just concentrate on the outside. They concentrate on the exoteric. They're being tossed around and being kept busy all of that time into.
We shouldn't blame the flat earthers. It's nothing.
No,
it's a matter of conscience. I mean, here we come back to Thomas Dolby, you know, in his song "The Flat Earth," or where he's singing about the earth is flat, you know, the earth can be any shape you want it. It's true. Yeah. It can.
I'm just annoyed by the fact, Brad, that the people spend so many time about the shape of the earth. You see, it's just a superficial thing. Exactly. The shape of the earth, that does not matter your entire life, and it does not influence your spiritual faith or something like this. It's just for me, it is just a minor thing. The big thing is actually geocentricity.
Well, let's put it this way, Michael. You have the spiritual realm and you have the physical realm. If you allow the physical realm to have precedence, then the spiritual realm doesn't have any meaning. If you allow the spiritual realm to have precedence, then the physical realm doesn't have any meaning. And as far as I understand it, Michael, this is a spiritual battle that we're in. It's a spiritual conviction that I have about the new covenant that God made, Jesus made through his blood, so that we can be redeemed by the Father. So our only advocate in this world is the Spirit, the living Spirit of Jesus Christ, which is alive and working in his brethren on this earth at this very moment.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, it takes faith to have that conviction. Oh, yes, Leon Occult.
Yeah, there is a website of Catholic scientists also about the past. Yeah, and if you look upon here that Mr. Foucault, he wasn't very old when he died. He was about 48 years old. Once again, Foucault created an enormous sensation with his demonstration of the Foucault pendulum in Paris in 1855. You see that 1851 was the year when he promoted the pendulum. In 1855, Foucault discovered the phenomenon of eddy currents, electrical currents induced in pieces of metal moving through inhomogeneous magnetic fields, also called Foucault currents. In 1855, therefore, in the same year, he received the Copley Medal of the Royal Society of London for his, quote, his very remarkable experimental researches, unquote. Guess what? When he in 1851, he created a sensation with the pendulum. Could it be that he at the same time was busy inventing electrical currents induced in pieces of metal moving through inhomogeneous magnetic fields? Just asking. You see, you don't have one idea and then next year, oh, I'm coming up with a different idea. Sometimes everything goes parallel.
Right.
And sometimes you have to delay things because some things would be too obvious. It's just a suggestion. I cannot prove it, but I find it very interesting. Induced in pieces of metal moving through magnetic fields. Interesting stuff. Yeah, you got here on that website, you got plenty of so-called Catholic science of the past. Hope I get it now. I'm not promoting the website by any means whatsoever. It is just the Catholic science. You see that you are part of a very big club.
Society of Catholic Scientists.
I'm sorry. I'm absolutely sorry. I didn't want to take anything away. Yeah. Because if so, you combine science and religion.
Oh boy, here we go.
Don't you combine science and religion with Catholic scientists? Is science the new religion, or is science the oldest religion that anybody can?
Can I quick read some scripture in reference to the picture right where your cursor was there? Gold masses. Gold masses.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just can't help it. I'm sorry. Matthew 23. You know the scripture. Yeah. Let's see. Just looking for it.
You don't have to look because I'm just on the way.
Yeah. Matthew 23. I'm trying to remember the verse though. Hold on. Here we go. Woe unto you, ye blind guides, which say, whosoever shall swear by the temple, it is nothing. But whosoever shall swear by the gold of the temple, he is a debtor. My, oh my, Michael, this has a lot to say about mammon, doesn't it? Ye fools and blind, for whether is greater, the gold or the temple that sanctifieth the gold? It's not a trick question.
It's just a rhetoric question.
Oh, it's not that easy if you don't understand what Scripture is trying to tell you.
Okay, so if you go to that website of the Society of Catholic Scientists, you could also say the Society of Jesuitical Scientists, because there are many Jesuits among them, of course. Yeah, so they are numerous. You see that maybe also some famous name about.
It could say Society of Catholic Gnostics, as far as I'm concerned.
Boskowitz was also a Jesuit. We will go into this later on. Clavius, Copernicus, Coriolis, Force. So René Descartes, French, etc. Leon Foucault, Galileo Galilei. This is just, of course, this is not complete. Don't get me wrong on that. Georges Lemaitre, we will soon approach him. Gregor Mendel, Blaise Pascal. Blaise Pascal was furious about the Jesuits. He wrote several letters about them. I know that. I have talked about that on several occasions with Jörg, for example. Blaise Pascal. Angelo Secchi, Ignaz Semmelweis. There's many famous names, and also many names that you wouldn't expect coming up soon. Galileo's Pendulum. Science, Sexuality and the Body Instrument Link, Department of Criminology. Dusan E. Pjelic, PhD, Professor and Chair, March 26, 2021. I said, what's that? Yeah, this is an official PhD, a professor of the sociology, Boston University. He has studied in University of Belgrade, and now he's teaching at the University of Southern Maine. So it appears. So the profile is that he did critical studies of psychoanalysis and psychiatry. Okay. And
psychiatry,
psychiatry, thank you. And he wrote a book about Galileo's Pendulum, Science, Sexuality and the Body Instrument Link, published by the SUNY Press in 2003. Don't read it. I don't read it. I refuse. I refuse to read it. This is a PhD professor. I can only read the things which are not offensive. And that's not much in that article. In 1645, the Jesuit astronomer Giovanni Battista Riccioli decided to take Galileo to task and test his law on the pendulum. Pendulum once again. With his 9 faithful Jesuit brothers, he went through a different type of bodily mortification. Together and without interruption, they counted in 24 hours about 87,000 pendular swings. Although distant events in time and space, Jesuit flagellation and the Jesuit pendular marathon both exemplify the culture of the body as a source of higher pleasure based on celibacy and self-mortification. Historian Peter Deer has emphasized the dominance of the Jesuit discourse of mathematics in 17th century experimental physics. While he emphasizes Jesuit mathematics as a vanguard of the new natural philosophy, he, however, like his counterparts, makes no reference of their bodies and pleasures. And that's why I stop. But interesting, if it is fitting that they have counted in 24 hours 87,000 pendular swings. You know what that is? You know what that is? That's hypnosis.
Oh, for sure.
That's hypnosis, and these are spiritual exercises. If you watch a pendulum swing for hours, you see that you got in a certain state of mind. That is the only reason why I've cited that article, because it is not obvious at first glance what it is about. But that is, in my opinion, that is what the goal was, to just hypnotize the people and then to try to have a test group, for example, of these 9 Jesuits. If that works, that people will be hypnotized by the swinging of the pendulum. I'm not making a joke out of it, just that you understand what it's all about. This is just a minor sentence, but it is about homosocial ties and flagellation. You see that it
sounds funny. I can't help but laugh.
It sounds funny, but if that is correct about the 87,000 pendular swings,
yeah, right,
to count. You see,
no, you're right. It's not a laughing matter.
They have to be constantly in front of any pendulum, and then you see that we are so close to hypnotism. And we are so close to spiritual exercise.
Flagellation, Michael. Have you ever noticed when, like, what is his title now? The Archbishop of New York, or whomever this guy is.
Cardinal Egan. Oh.
Yeah, right. So the Archbishop, of New York, isn't he the head of the Knights of Malta in the United States?
I have no
that's
proof
just
of that at the moment.
I can't verify that without Daryl Eberhard around or someone would know. But boy, sometimes I get these things wrong. I'm sorry, everybody, but
no, it's not that big deal. You see that I'm not going into the flagellation thing, but because I wanted to have it clear, absolutely sure. I know we did sacred prostitution, but I just want to point out that it is absolutely clear that these were the guys who wanted to rule with their science. I'm reading that sentence also. With their intellectual competitors, the Renaissance Neoplatonists, Jesuits share love for mathematics and experimentation, finding in them pleasure of masculine rationality and the reason for homosocial bonding. Remember, no women allowed, officially. Jesuits stayed away from the paganism of Neoplatonic science and subjected themselves to a higher individual and group discipline directly inferred from the Christian discourse on sexuality. This, however, did not make their identity and rationality less dependent on pleasure. In fact, one may argue that the pleasure of masculine rationality and homosocial bonding embedded into the order of the brotherhood became far more important to them. I am prepared to argue that this may have been one of the most important factors in their becoming the scientific vanguard of 17th century science, and that rejecting a priori reasoning as relevant for the physical world and cautiously accepting, etc., etc., etc. So what he's telling is that the Jesuits were totally focused on their research, and they had nothing to do with family, wives, children, etc. So they were absolutely obsessed with their science. You have to be in a certain mind frame to count a pendulum. You see, what is the use of it? I don't know what happened exactly, but I say that if they use a pendulum, for me, and the Jesuits using a pendulum to deceive the people, you see, for me, it smells and sounds like spiritual exercises to me. And if you look behind these people who were being put in front from the Catholic Church or the Jesuits or both, yeah, if you have the real quotes from Nicolaus Copernicus, for example, you say that were these guys forced to do so? Nicolaus Copernicus quote, I can easily conceive, Most Holy Father, of course, letter to the Pope, that as soon as people learned that in this book, which I have written concerning the revolutions of the heavenly bodies, I ascribe certain motions to the earth, they will cry out at once that I and my theory should be rejected. There it is. This is a source here, New Science of the 17th Century, Nicolaus Copernicus, dedication of On the Revolution of the Heavenly Bodies to Pope Paul III, 1543. Interesting year. They will cry out and they should be rejected. For I am not so much in love with my conclusions as not to wait what others will think about them. And although I know that meditations of a philosopher are far removed from the judgment of the laity, because his endeavor is to seek out the truth in all things so far as this is permitted by God to the human reason, I still believe that one must avoid theories altogether foreign to orthodoxy. Yeah, you see that it doesn't sound very convincing what he did, and some websites claim that he did release it or withheld it actually, unless he was almost dying. Yeah, so to avoid any public persecution, so to speak. So this is the one quote from Nicolaus Copernicus. But there is more. There is more. On this website, Faculty Fairfield, SJET Compounds, this site has been archived for historical purposes. These pages are no longer being updated. The Companion of Jesuits, excerpts from the book by Joseph McDonnell, S.J. Yeah, so this is the website. The title Companions of Jesuits sounds like the name Ignatius originally used for his own society, Compagnons of Jesus, and so some explanation is needed. Ignatius, unlike Dominic and Francis, huh? Not the Pope, but the Pope said that he has been named himself after Francis of Assisi, and we highly doubt that. We think it's about the Jesuit.
Francis Xavier.
Yeah, did not want his followers to be named Ignatians after him, but instead wanted his followers to be called Companions of Jesus.
Right. Francis Xavier was one of the founders of the original Society of Jesus, 1540, I think it was, right?
The word, and didn't he go to Asia? If I remember correctly?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. The word Jesuit predated Ignatius and was used by non-Catholics to deride what they saw as their fanatical Catholic adversaries. I cannot prove it, but I found that very strange. For some reason, the latter name stuck. Companion is derived from the Latin cum with penis, though companion of Jesus means with whom they break bread. Companions work together for a common goal. They do more than collaborate. They are friends inspired by the same person, animated by the same principles, and enthused about the same work. Yeah, and remember, once again, without children, without women. To identify those whose lives are intertwined with Jesuits working in our various ministries, especially colleagues, the word lay colleague are adequate, whereas companions of Jesuits seems very appropriate. Yeah. It must be remembered that unlike this cloistered monk, the Jesuit's vocation was never meant to keep him aloof from non-Jesuits, and so collaboration in Jesuit education is nothing new. Ignatius was a layman most of his life and died 16 years after he started the society. It seems to surprise some that Ignatius Loyola was a layman when he experienced, recorded, and conducted the spiritual exercises, a document which constitute the foundation of Jesuit life as well as Jesuit apostolates. In fact, Jesuit colleagues could more properly be called Ignatian colleagues rather than Jesuit. The name Ignatian has wonderful poignancy since it reaches beyond these men who are Jesuits and refer to the countless women and men who have adopted an Ignatian view of God. Yeah, which God? Mary. And our word as expressed in the spiritual exercises. Don't forget that in the spiritual exercises, when we did that session on that very topic, we pointed out that many points in that spiritual exercises refer to Mary, to the so-called Holy Mary. So it's absolutely clear that it is just based on Roman Catholicism, or if you like to have it that way, as the author here means, on fanatic Catholic, Roman Catholic religion. Fanatical. Okay? So people who would kill for their faith, for example, these are fanatics. I can look it up if you like, what a fanatic is. Fanatic. Insane person. From Latin fanaticus, mad, enthusiastic, inspired by a god. Yeah, which god? A god.
Furious mad, yeah.
Yeah. Originally pertaining to a temple, from temple, shrine, consecrated place. So somebody who is insane has to do with the temple. So that is spiritual exercises. Somebody who's in a mental state and is becoming insane.
Zealous person affected by enthusiasm.
Mm-hmm. A little bit nicer.
Here it says
furious.
Characterized by excessive enthusiasm,
Yeah.
especially in religion, of nonconformists from 1640.
Yeah. Yeah, you could go on and on and on and on. Histories are full of references to very talented people who have collaborated with the Jesuits in education, scholarship, scientific investigation, and service. They have been colleagues, teachers, students, friends, relatives, antagonists, or cohorts of Jesuits. They include Bernini the sculptor, Rubens, Van Dyck the painters, Carissimi the magician, Molière the comedian, Corneille the tragedian, Descartes the philosopher, James Joyce the novelist, Bossuet the orator, Dove the romantic novelist, Montesquieu the political philosopher, and scientists such as Ampère. There you get your currents. Boyle, Cassini, Cauchy, Dirichlet, Galileo, Guettaldi, Van Guericke, Kepler, Lagny, Lalande, Marcus Marci, Mersenne, Ohm, Van Romen, Torricelli, and Volta. And oh, there's much more. Much more. So this is just the pretext of it. Interesting. It gets really interesting when you go down the path. My sources, speaking of the author here, are not religious books. In my opinion, propaganda pieces such as The Night of Columbus, past paid newspaper ads, quote unquote, Marco Polo was a Catholic, do not prove anything more than the fact that some interesting people were Catholic. My sources are the standard reference books recognized by scholars for a given field, and these books are crucial in the study because I'm skilled in only one of the fields mentioned. I can only point to the sources so that someone more familiar with the subject can read further. That looks a little bit humble to me. That's a good starting point, I think. These are the sources of that book. He claims Biblioteca de la Compañía de Jesús, Encyclopedia, New Grove Dictionary, Oxford Companion, Dictionary of Scientific Biography, and Philosophical Transaction of the Royal Society. So let's get started of the Compagnons of Jesuits, a tradition of collaboration by Joseph F. MacDonald, S.J., his own initials. I will make it a little bit more appropriate. I think that's clear enough. Thomas Birch, History of the Royal Society, gives interesting connection between Jesuits and the Royal Society. Remember, Isaac Newton was the head in his time. And it is to the credit of the first secretary of the Royal Society, Henry Oldenburg, that despite his undeniable personal prejudices, he included accounts of the theories and discoveries of a considerable number of Jesuits. Actually, it would have required a special effort to neglect them, because at that time Jesuits and their lay colleagues were astonishing Europe with their geographical and intellectual discoveries. New lands were still being discovered, people were eager for information about them, and Jesuits were on the forefront of both the exploration and the articulate reporting of their findings. It was obvious that their worldwide organization of highly educated men would be in a very favorable position for sending back valuable information to Europe. Oldenburg was well aware of these possibilities and made many efforts to enlist Jesuits and their colleagues among his overseas correspondents. Yeah, why it is? Because they were on a mission for the Roman Catholic Church to start the Counter-Reformation. And so the fruits of the Counter-Reformation is the Jesuitical science. It's just as have you got a journalist everywhere, placed everywhere on the world, because they were using more or less the Catholic, or more specific, the Jesuit network system, to get more information about foreign lands and cultures and information in general. It can really be easy to look upon the fact that the Jesuits were the army, or are the army, of the Roman Catholic Church, and they have almost infinite resources. There's a church in every small town in Mexico. There is a church or priest or lay or missionaries in Latin, so-called Latin America. You see, where does the name Latin America is originated from? Latin. They don't speak Latin in America, in South America. Faculty at the Jesuit schools were known for their independence and creative innovations. They also were highly respected by other scientists. In fact, it is a challenge. This is a very important sentence now. In fact, it is a challenge for historians to find a single significant scientist of the 16th, 17th, and 18th centuries who was not in some way involved with Jesuits and their colleagues. Bam.
Man.
As students, as teachers, as relatives, as collaborators, as adversaries, as rivals, or simply as personal friends. Part of the reason was the many Jesuit schools. Yeah, we know, in Portugal, in Italy, everywhere. A more significant cause, however, was the sizable network formed by those schools, which the Royal Society of London was forced to acknowledge. Yeah. Furthermore, Jesuits had an uncanny facility to be able to gather scholars who were willing to collaborate with them. In a recent study of the development of science, God and Nature, 1986, the authors noticed Jesuit emphasis on collaboration as especially important. The Jesuits had particular zest for experimental science. They were interested in every newly discovered phenomenon, from electrostatic attraction to the barometer to the magic lantern. Oh, this is Athanasius Kircher. He is, so to speak, the originator of the modern cinema. So it is a Jesuitical discovery or invention. Athanasius Kircher, the last name who knew it all. Yeah. And Jesuits played a major role in discovering many new effects on their own, such as diffraction and electrical repulsion. A recent history of early electrical science awarded the Jesuits the honor of being the single most important contributor to experimental physics in the 17th century. This is way before the Foucault pendulum. Such an accolade would only be strengthened by detailed study of other science, such as optics, where virtually all the important treatises of the period were written by Jesuits. Optics. There was something with Galileo. More significant than their numbers or their inventiveness is the fact that many of the Jesuits had a keen sense in the value of precision in experimental science, a sense that was not widely echoed by many of their more illustrious contemporaries. One of the outstanding astronomers of the 17th century, the Jesuit John Baptist Riccioli, S.J., authored Alma Gestrum Novum Astronomicum, which contains the first lunar map to name craters after people, scientists, instead of after abstract concepts such as tranquility. A replica of this famous pioneer map stands in the entrance of the Moon exhibit at the Smithsonian Institution. In an attempt to develop an accurate pendulum, Riccioli once persuaded 9 of his fellow teachers to count 87,000 oscillations. Didn't I recall that from the last book of this PhD guy? That was page 66. Yeah. Over the course of a day, enabling him to identify an error of 3 parts in 1,000, Lindbergh was fascinated by this collaboration and observed that, quote, "It is instructive to remember that it was this Jesuit Riccioli, not Galileo, who first accurately determined the rate of acceleration of a falling body." Oh, of a fallen body? Brett, wasn't that something that was attributed to Isaac Newton in the first place? The Newton law of gravity?
Yes, yes, yes.
See my point? Another admirable feature of the Jesuit scientific enterprise was the appreciation, of the value of collaboration. One might well argue that the Society of Jesus, rather than the Accademia del Cimento or the Royal Society, was the first true scientific society. The Jesuit Kircher, the impresario of Rome, was more than a match for Mersenne and Beaulieu in Paris or Henry Oldenburg in London in his ability to collect observations and objects from a worldwide network of informants. It's nearly the same worldwide network of informants as the Secret Service. It's the same, actually. It's the same network. The Secret Service is functioning all over the world and is centralized in the Vatican. If you don't think I'm correct, then please read the book The Global Vatican. Yeah, Tom Friess did it extensively, I think in 1908 sessions or so about it. Von Francis Rooney, once the ambassador in the Vatican. Okay, let's move on. More important, Kircher published this information in massive encyclopedias, which together with similar efforts from Scott and Riccioli were as vital as the early scientific journals in disseminating scientific information. If scientific collaboration was one of the outgrowths of the scientific revolution, Revoluzione, the Jesuits deserve a large share of the credit. Yeah, of course, it was a scientific revolution against the Reformation. The Kircher, so the man who knew it all, whom Lindbergh refers to, was a 17th century Jesuit polymath. Once again, the 17th century is the century where Galileo has his trial. And says, oh, it's spinning. Jesuit polymath Athanasius Kircher, S.J. In 1956, in a speech at Loyola University in Los Angeles during an anniversary celebration of motion pictures, Cecil B. DeMille spoke of him. Quote, "The real pioneer of the movies is a Jesuit, Athanasius Kircher, S.J., who invented the magic lantern in the 17th century. Magic. M-I-J-E-C. So it has something to do with the religion, I suppose. It has been invented, so to speak, by a Jesuit, and it is a magic lantern. It is magic. It is to deceive the people into an occult or a pagan belief system. And that is a belief system. People nowadays, Brad, believe everything they see on television and in a cinema. If it is not explained that this is just a movie or fiction. Yeah. It is interesting to note that the same Frater Kircher was the first European scholar to call attention to the importance of Egyptian hieroglyphs, unquote. William Ashford also speaks on the effort made in the Jesuit colleagues at collaboration with other scientists and at the mutual support they provided for the sciences. The Society of Jesus in the 17th century, that is started beginning with Tycho Brahe, yeah, in 1600, contained within its ranks an astonishing number of enthusiastic students in the natural world. Indeed, for the first 60 years of the century, the Jesuits were the only scientific society in existence anywhere. There you got it. Once again, it's not my sentence. So from 1600, when Tycho Brahe suddenly died, I think it was 1601 or so, to 1660, the Jesuits were the only scientific society in existence anywhere. At a time when experimental science was decidedly unfashionable, Jesuits were charting sunspots, calibrating pendulums, timing the fall of weights of towers. Oh, Isaac, hi, Mr. Isaac, and devising a variety of ingenious inventions. Indeed, in the fields of geometry, optics, magnetism, cartography, mechanics, and earth sciences, most of the etc. etc. You see I could read the entire book. It's very interesting. And what do we have with the Foucault pendulum? Yeah, we have mechanics, and we have maybe magnetics and maybe other things. Yeah, calibrating pendulums. So not what was it? Not this guy here, Galileo. Yeah, but it was it is instructive to remember that it was Riccioli, not Galileo, who first accurately determined the rate of acceleration of a falling body, and also not Isaac Newton. Riccioli was long dead when Isaac Newton went on the stage to take the fame. My. Many of the mathematicians at this time, though not trained by Jesuits, were familiar with their books. Leibniz was inspired and enlightened, Brett, by them, as were Huygens, Barrow, Desargues, Gregory, Lambert, Mercator, Boyle, and Newton by their own admission. After meeting in Rome with the Jesuits on their way to the Chinese mission, Leibniz started a correspondence with them and sent a suggestion for explaining the Holy Spirit as part of a trinity to the mathematically minded Chinese. He suggested using the analog to the square root of -1 as a sort of intersection of number and non-number. Leibniz was inspired by the work of Kircher to attempt to find an alphabet of thought which would enable all to speak of the creation of knowledge. Leibniz also wrote to Bernoulli in 1703, attributing his original interest in mathematics to the writing of Jesuit mathematicians Clavius, Gregory St. Vincent, and Gourdin. There were many strong friendships. I read a little bit slower now. There were many strong friendships between Jesuits and non-Jesuit mathematicians, astronomers. The son-in-law of Tycho Brahe once told Clavius that he should write more often to Tycho and that he should not hesitate to ask for anything, because even though Tycho Brahe was not Catholic, he was not a bigot, and in fact liked Clavius. You see that if it all comes down to it, it's a frequent correspondent of Jacques de Broglie was Pierre de Fermat. This affected the work of both mathematicians. Fermat had been referred to as, quote, the prince of amateur mathematicians, unquote, and had been called by Laplace, quote, the true inventor of the differential calculus, unquote. He was a devout Catholic. His son Jean was an archdeacon, and his daughters Catherine and Louise were religious nuns. Fermat is best remembered for Fermat's last theorem. This is very interesting here. D'Alembert, the angry encyclopedist, in spite of his hatred to the Jesuits, came to Jesuit Roger Boscovich, we will go into him later on, for help when he was deprived of the mathematics chair which he felt he deserved. The chair had been left vacant on the death of Clairaut, and D'Alembert was told that his field of mathematics was not suitable. In desperation, in a frantic letter written in haste and filled with grammatical errors, he begs Boscovich to help him. In a translation of part of the letter, he implores, quote, I ask you, Reverend Father, for the love which you have for me, to take this news to all the intellectuals of Italy who hold me in esteem, unquote. What does that tell you, Brett?
Boy, oh boy.
Yeah, even people who didn't like the Jesuits, they had to become friends with them because they had the power. They wanted to have fame, they wanted to have money, they wanted to have fortune, and therefore they needed the Jesuits. Because the Jesuits, more or less, they ruled the scientific classes and colleagues. This goes on and on and on. In the collected works of Robert Boyle and Christian Huygens, and in the correspondence of Isaac Newton, the number of references to Jesuit mathematicians and astronomers is extensive. The same can be said about the writings of Descartes, Mersenne, Gassendi, and many others. The Jesuit influence was due in large part to the peculiar position of the Jesuit society in the field of higher education and to its policy of encouraging scholarships in mathematics among its members. You see, you could go on and on and on. Christopher Clavius' correspondence was enormous, and some of it has been collected and preserved in the archives of the Gregorian University in Rome. Some light is thrown into the various personalities in the 291 letters of the collection. Tycho Brahe, 1601, died. Chided Clavius for not writing more often. The famous astronomer François Vité was concerned about Clavius' criticism because it got him into trouble with Rome, etc., etc. They all, yeah, you see that Tycho Brahe also wanted to Clavius to write more. So that means that the Jesuits especially by the information of Clavius, were absolutely informed what Tycho Brahe was up to. But it gets better. It gets better. It gets better. I have to look it up where it is. Lunar craters named to honor Jesuits. You see, these are the lunar craters of the moon named after famous Jesuits. Boscovich, Clavius, etc. Grimaldi, Kircher. All these guys. The moon. Yeah. I have to drink a bit, sorry, but then
man, this gets nauseating how fast you're going, Michael. I can't keep up.
I'm sorry.
I just can't. It's too much information.
This is information overkill, huh? Yeah.
Well, it's important to go through it because it's, you got a good point, Michael.
Yeah. Leibniz, a Lutheran. That's why I picked it. That's why I picked it. Yeah. Yeah. I'll just start with René Descartes. Not only was a Jesuit alumnus, but also had a nephew, Philip Descartes, S.J., who was a Jesuit mathematician. Or Leibniz, a Lutheran, was attracted to mathematics after reading the works of Jesuit mathematicians and later wrote to the Jesuits in China, suggesting the use of complex numbers to explain the mystery of the Trinity to Chinese mathematicians. Oh, blinding them with science? Use of complex numbers. Oh, I'm sorry, I have to. Again, I find that I like that find so much here. Yeah, yeah, there it is. To blind someone with science confused by the use of big words or complex explanations. So, oh, where it is. Oh, now where it is. I've copied in the script. So okay. So to blind someone with science means confused by the use of big words or complex explanations. And he says, and he is considering here. Suggesting the use of complex numbers to explain the mystery of the Trinity.
Yeah,
isn't
there
that
you
great?
go.
Yeah, don't make it simple. Please make it very complicated so that they don't get it. They have to believe it. Yeah, blind them with. Yeah. The great mathematician and father of modern analysis, Augustine Cauchy, who wrote 700 brilliant papers, lived in a Jesuit house, took an active part in Jesuit sodalities, and defended the Jesuits who were under attack during the France terror of 1830. Galileo is considered the father of modern science, but the Dominican William Wallace, OP, I have to look it up what it is, has proven that there were 8 grandfathers, all Jesuit physicists, teaching in the Roman college from whom Galileo learned his early theories of motion. It was to these Jesuits that Galileo first appealed before his crisis with the church. If that is not enough, there is the next one coming up. There is also an impressive collection of correspondence between Kepler and the Jesuits. Protestant Kepler sent ecumenical letters of encouragement as well as scientific reports to the Jesuits working in China. He dedicated his last books to his Jesuit friend Paul Gauguin, S.J. And you were thinking of who could have an alibi and who could benefit from the death of Tycho Brahe, huh? So what is OP? Dominican William Wallace. Let's look it up. Mathematician, Scottish chemist, Wallace.
Can you look that up? Can you search OP, William Wallace OP, maybe? Huh? No, I don't think that's not it. Yeah, 1953. No.
It doesn't tell when he was coming up with that. Dominican William Wallace OP has proven that they were and grandfathers, so it could be that it was just 20 years ago.
Oh, I see. I get it. I see.
You see, this is OP.
Okay.
What is OP?
I don't know. I have no idea.
Opus number out of print.
How about OP Catholicism.
Old Pauline, ex-pupil, old Paul.
Yeah.
My. Ordo Predicatorum, abbreviated OP, is a mendicant order of the Catholic
Mendicants,
Church.
yes, mendicants.
Yeah, Dominicans. Okay, Dominican order, OP.
So it's Dominican, okay.
Yeah, okay.
Boy, Latin. Look at that.
So we are quite sure
arms,
that
Michael.
we are quite sure about the source here. Yeah, we are quite sure that this guy just recently died, and he proved that there were 8 grandfathers.
Yeah,
all the connections in between. Yeah, also Franz Anton Mesmer, Mesmerize, was a student of the Jesuit Maximilian Hellen. Together by a process of spirited argumentation and disagreement, learned how to make suffering people oblivious, etc., etc.
Mesmerism, yeah.
Yeah, mesmerism, yeah. Yeah. No, it was Riccioli, not Galileo, who first accurately determined the rate of acceleration of a falling body. Why do they not quote the speed 9.81? Newton mechanics, yeah, it is part of Newton mechanics. That it is. It has to be. Free fall is a constantly accelerated movement with the acceleration a equals 9.81 meter per second square. In honor of Galileo, the acceleration due to gravity is also written as g, etc. In honor of Galileo. And what have we read here? It was Jesuit Riccioli who first accurately determined the rate of acceleration of a falling body. Bam. You see, that's what my point with Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa and Trithemius. That's the same here. It's the same here. Or even worse, and when you know that when the claim is right of that Dominican order OP, William Wallace, I think it was, William Wallace, that there were many people behind him, 8 grandfathers, all Jesuit physicians teaching at the Roman College, from who Galileo learned his early theories of motion. This was a whole team, but Galileo is the one who's putting out in front so that the Jesuits do not get the blame. But it's just a layman, Galileo, who would only studied 1 year in a monastery when his father had pulled him out. And then afterwards he studied here and there and did something, and then he came up with his ideas based on Copernicus, who died at nearly the same time when he had published his works in 1543. And don't you think that is some strange things are going on? When it's been attributed in honor of Galileo, doesn't mean that Galileo was the originator. That was the name what I was looking for, originator, in honor of Galileo. But it is not from Galileo, as we have learned here from that book, if it is correct, and I think it is from the Jesuit Riccioli. It's so interesting if you go. The Dominican scholar William Wallace, OP, we now know that's Dominican, in his book Galileo's Early Notebooks, had demonstrated by using the internal evidence of terminology, word order and symbols that much of Galileo's teaching came from 9 Jesuit scientists teaching at the Roman College, this corroborating the research of other scholars such as Crombie and Adriano Carrillo. After studying Galileo's manuscript for 15 years, Wallace found that Galileo's notebooks shows considerably evidence of duplicating the notes of these 9 teachers. Practically all of the material derives from textbooks and lecture notes which were used by the Jesuits at the Roman College. References to these notes are available in collections like Sommervogel's Bibliothèque de la Compagnie de Jésus. Evidence of their strong mutual friendship is the fact that it was to Jesuit scientists that Galileo was attracted in his earlier years. In 1588, this unknown young scientist wrote to Clavius asking about a center of gravity demonstration. Gravity, you see, you think it's attributed to someone else? No, it's to the Jesuits. Demonstration, and expressed great admiration for Clavius. From the remarks in this letter, as well as in later letters, his esteem for Jesuits is quite evident. So he was very submissive. For example, here, if you are silent, I shall be silent too. Yeah. Excuse my delight in dealing with you and continue to grant me your grace, for which I supplicate you in every instance. Also gain for me the grace of the other Father Christopher Greenberger, your disciple, whose reputation for mathematical ability has aroused my highest admiration. It was the Jesuit Honoré Fabry who first explained Galileo's experiment demonstrating equal time for falling bodies. Fabry taught Galileo's support of the theory about the motion of the Earth around the Sun. But his lessons came at an awkward time. Apparently, only criticism of Galileo was expected from Fabry, since he belonged to the Holy Office. Oh my, oh my, oh my. So he taught Galileo's support of the theory about the motion of the Earth. Yeah, but at the same time, he belonged to the Holy Office. His statement brought Fabry 50 days in prison under Pope Alexander VII. He was released only by the intervention of King Leopold II, who needed him in the classroom. Oh my, oh my. Still, Fabry put a chapter in his Dialogi Physici entitled De Motu Terrae concerning the Earth's motion. The heliocentric world system was not widely accepted until 1760, after Copernicus' Revolutionis had been removed from the index due to the interventions of the Jesuit, once again, Roger Boskowitz, who finally convinced Pope Benedict XIV that the earlier prohibition was an absurdity and that perhaps removal came to a century and a half too late. So, Jesuits everywhere. It's not guerrillas everywhere, it's Jesuits everywhere. Kepler found it quite the contrary, because he felt he received much more abuse from his Protestant pastors than Galileo ever did from his Catholic hierarchy, for the heliocentric theory. Björklund quotes two recent books on the subject, one by the same William Wallace mentioned above, and another by historian Ugo Baldini. Wallace argues that Galileo was more Aristotelian than usually believed. More precisely, what Galileo shared with the Aristotelians was not their cosmology or their views on the cause of motion, but rather selected elements of their philosophical system, such as their theory of demonstration, and that he borrowed these elements not from traditional commentators, but from Jesuitical natural philosophers. Baldini's outlook might also be formed by a reaction to the frequent misinterpretation of the Jesuits as the bad guys. Aha, interesting. Oh, they are not soldiers. Oh, they have not taken their vows. Who created so much grief for Galileo, a view that used to characterize much of Galileo's studies. In fact, his focus on not so much on Galileo and the Jesuits, but on the Jesuits' scientific mentality, as this was constructed through education practices and institutional dynamics, like the tensions between them and the philosophers and theologians. I can highly recommend that book. That is very interesting. The Jesuit astronomers were convinced that the Aristotelian Ptolemaic system could not be upheld. They would have provisionally adopted the cosmological views of Tycho Brahe. You see, provisionally. And what happened? Well, 1 year before the death of Tycho Brahe, this Johannes Kepler came around, who was in touch with the Jesuits. And also Tycho Brahe, of course, he had correspondence with Clavius. Okay, once again. Who had provisionally adopted the cosmological views of Tycho Brahe, who avoided problems with scripture. The Jesuits were not prepared to give up this makeshift position until truly conclusive proofs in favor of Copernicanism at the level of science were forthcoming. On the other hand, Galileo was not prepared to give such proof. The Jesuits, therefore, like true scientists, would have felt it necessary to stay silent. Also, it is necessary to rethink the power of influence events which is customarily attributed to the Jesuits. In fact, the author says, I believe that some of the biographers of Galileo tend to attribute to the members of the Society of Jesus in general and to the astronomers of the Roman College in particular an ability to influence the decisions of the Church of that time, which is quite exaggerated. Okay, if you take into account that the Society of Jesus had the official order to destroy the Reformation, I think that quote is not quite correct. Johannes Kepler, Galileo's famous contemporary. Kepler was, don't forget, he visited Tycho Brahe, and soon afterwards Tycho Brahe died. Galileo's famous contemporary, Kepler, was from the time of his first visit to Rome even more closely associated with the Jesuits than Galileo himself, both as a scientist and as a friend of the order. For several years, the members of the order looked towards to the conversion of this great so-called Protestant scholar, and I think that he was no Protestant whatsoever, Brett.
Isn't that something, how they just latch on? They just latch on, and you know what? It's a death sentence, and the victim doesn't even know. The victim does not even know unless he knows who a Jesuit is. He studied his Jesuitism.
On the one hand, yeah, you claim to be a Protestant, and then
to all eyes, you are a Protestant. I mean, just read the Jesuit oath. It says it right there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
The fourth vow of induction.
On the outside, you seem to be a Protestant, and on the inside, you're best friends with Jesuits.
Well, this will be a good time to read the Jesuit oath to our listeners that have never heard it before. You know, there are a lot of people that have never heard the extreme oath of the Jesuits. It's in the congressional record, Michael, of the United States. I forget what year.
Also in France in
1900 something, isn't it? Yeah. Our listeners should look it up and read it if you've never read it before, because it's very revealing. Yeah, Johannes Kepler. This picture looks quite Jesuitical to me. Look at that face.
You see, this book has been written by somebody who is not in the faith. So he's just judging by his sources. His sources are worldly. And even so, yeah, he came up with that claim. And that was my suggestion.
Wait, no, isn't this book written by a Jesuit?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, absolutely. All right. This is written by
This is an admission from the horse's mouth here.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. They don't hide it. They're proud of it. They're proud of it. Very good find, though, Michael.
Mm-hmm. Kepler had a long friendship with Jesuits, even though he found himself in controversy with them. For example, yeah, but the end justifies the means, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Kepler wanted to be big. He needed the tables and all the furniture, the apparatus, the mechanics of Tycho Brahe, and he succeeded. You see, how Tycho Brahe died is the one question. That he didn't die a natural death, I think, is out of question. And cui bono, who profits? Who benefits from it? I think it is not much to say that I think it was 2 days later that Johannes Kepler became the imperial mathematician at the court of Rudolf in Prague, the King Rudolf.
The problem with all of this, Michael, is studying Jesuitism is it's just like being blinded with science all over again. Yeah. Only you're blinded with religion this time, and it's a vain, glorious religion is what this synagogue of Satan is.
Yeah, it's doublespeak. If you see you see what I have inserted here. Cui bono, who profits, who benefits. Kepler had a long friendship with Jesuits, even though he found himself in controversy with them. For example, strong criticism concerning Kepler's lack of mathematical rigor in using infinitesimals came from the Jesuit mathematician Paul Gaudin, S.J. In fact, Gaudin was quite devoted to Kepler's studies and to his well-being. An edict had been issued that all non-Catholics had to move out of Linz. So when Kepler refused to capitulate and become a Catholic, he was exiled from Linz and had to move to Graz, thus cutting him off from Prague. In 1626, he had been thinking about becoming a Catholic, but the more he learned about the Catholic hierarchy, the less inclined he was to convert to Catholicism. And you say you can read, you can claim anything, but you see that he was befriended with many Jesuits. Yeah, you see that it had been stated here a few sentences before. Kepler was even more closely associated with the Jesuits than Galileo himself. You see, that says a lot. A friend of the order. Yeah, he doesn't want to convert to Catholicism, but he's a friend of the order of the Jesuits. Oh my, come on, really? Really? The Jesuit Gaudin was concerned about Kepler's financial predicament as well as his inability to study the skies since he did not own a telescope. Who could help Brett with a telescope?
Well, see, now when you're a Jesuit, you have every what should we say, privilege to lie and to cheat and to steal if the church benefits. So, you know, why not just you know, bend the truth a little bit in this writing, Michael? You know, it's no problem. They can admit a few things, but they're not going to tell you everything.
Mm-hmm. So they were concerned about his financial predicaments. Another Jesuit, Nicolas Tucci, was well known as a telescope maker. At the urging of Gaudin, Tucci brought a telescope to Kepler. Kepler, like a child with a new toy, wrote to Gaudin of his gratitude for the latter concerns and kindness. It was one of many letters he would write to Gaudin in his lifetime. One of the most touching letters was the dedication of his last book, The Dream by Johannes Kepler, the late imperial mathematician. Yes! Due to the fact that Tycho Brahe died an unnatural death. A posthumous work on lunar astronomy, 1634, published by his son after he died. In this work, Kepler tells of his discoveries concerning the surface of the moon and describes an imagined trip there as well as how it might be inhabited. Yeah, he's speaking of the first trip to the moon.
Okay, no. There's a session that Michael, Jörg Glissman and I did on the extreme oath of the Jesuits in Code Word Barbalon, and I believe you can find that playlist on my channel and also on Jörg Glissman's channel. And I can't tell you the number of the video at the moment, but yeah, that is a very, very important lesson for everyone to learn that is not familiar with the extreme oath, because there are instructions given before taking the oath, and those are very important because yeah, this whole book is really important, Code Word Barbalon. But anyway, please, Michael.
Yeah, I know that it's somewhere up on archive. I cannot remember where it is. I know that Jörg also carried that, but I don't know if you have. Yeah, it's more or less the cruelest bow you can take. So yeah,
I mean, talk about being blinded by science, Michael.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. INRI. Here we go.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not nice. It's not nice at all.
No, it's very, very.
Yeah, there it is. You see that this is the text here in highlighted yellow.
Yeah, I do further promise and declare that I will, when opportunity presents, make and wage relentless war secretly or openly against all heretics, Protestants, and Masons, as I am directed to do, to extirpate and exterminate them from the face of the whole earth, that I will spare neither age, sex, nor condition, that I will burn, hang, boil, waste, boil, flay, Peel the skin off, strangle, bury alive these infamous heretics. Listen to this. Open up the stomachs and wombs of their women and crush their infants' heads against the walls in order to annihilate their execrable race, that when the same cannot be done openly, I will secretly use the poison cup, the strangulation cord, the steel of the poniard, or the leaden bullet, regardless of the honor, rank, dignity, or authority of the persons, whatever their condition in life, either public or private, as at any time I may be directed to do so by any agent of the Pope or superior of the Brotherhood of the Holy Faith of the Society of Jesus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was just thinking
Talk about blasphemy, huh?
Yeah, I was just thinking about what the poison cup could be in 2021. Isn't it so that in some things are also mercury nowadays?
Yes, that's right.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Yeah,
huh?
no different than the mercury used in
Yeah.
alchemy.
Yeah, and in the death of Tycho Brahe.
Yeah. Only these things are done in such a fashion that.
But with whom you can argue about it, who you can talk with it. You see that if you approach an average guy, you know the fourth woe of the Jesuits. You know how this is. People absolutely, they are totally clueless. Totally clueless. You see, we are doing the study here for an absolute minority of people. This is minority.
Oh, I'm sure that most of our listeners already know all of this information, but there's always those few people who come to the channel in curiosity, have never seen any of our videos, never, checked out any of our work before, and they're just as stunned as we were when we first encountered this crap.
Yeah. You see,
I don't blame them for being really
that's
upset.
not the point. But you see, we are not doing a minority report here. We are doing the minority report of the minority report of the minority report.
Correct.
You see, that it's so little what reaction we can cause and what.
Yeah, Michael, you're reminding me of what we did in our last session when we were talking, or was it? No, we were talking about this afternoon. Or this morning, in fact. I think it was 1 John. Let me search this again now. Was it?
Yeah, you see that in the meantime, I would like to point out that Kepler wrote a letter to the Very Reverend Father Paul Godard, priest of the Society of Jesus. You see that they were befriended all over.
Here we go. For this is the message that ye have heard from the beginning, that we should love one another, not as Cain, who was of that wicked one, and slew his brother. And wherefore slew he him? Because his own works were evil, and his brother's righteous. Marvel not, my brethren, if the world hate you. We know that we have passed from death unto life, because we love the brethren. He that loveth not his brother abideth in death. Whosoever hateth his brother is a murderer, and ye know that no murderer hath eternal life abiding in him. Hereby perceive we the love of God, because he laid down his life for us, as we ought to lay down our lives for the brethren. But whoso has this world's good, and seeth his brother have need, and shutteth up his bowels of compassion from him, how dwelleth the love of God in him? My little children, let us not love in word, neither in tongue, but in deed and in truth. And hereby we know that we are of the truth, and shall assure our hearts before him. For if our heart condemn us, God is greater than our heart, and knoweth all things. Beloved, if our heart condemn us not, then we have confidence toward God. And whosoever we ask, we receive of him, because we kept his commandments and do those things which are pleasing in his sight. And this is the commandment, that we should believe on the name of his Son, Jesus Christ, and love one another as he gave us commandment. And he that keepeth his commandments dwelleth in, and he that keepeth his commandments dwelleth in him, and he in him. And hereby we know that he abideth in us by the Spirit which he hath given us. And that is 1 John, I think I started at verse 11 through 24.
Yeah, well done, Brett. You see, it's unbelievable that this news has been not out for the general public, or of no interest for the general public. You see, in Wikipedia, you don't find that these quotes.
No,
Yeah?
you never
You don't find it.
because
Yeah, look at this beloved patron of the Reverend Father, Society of Jesus. Then the close ties that existed between Kepler and the Jesuits is related by Burke Gaffney, the author of the book Kepler and the Jesuits.
The book is written by an SJ, so
yeah.
Talk about taking the name of Christ in vain, eh?
Mm-hmm. Huh. Yeah, but they boast with it, more or less. Yeah, so the time is so near that they can actually boast with it. You see, they don't have to hide it anymore.
They boast it. Yes, they do. They constantly are boasting it.
Yeah.
Constant.
And you see that the close ties, we could go also in this book, but I think it is so obvious that he had very close ties. For example, Kepler kept up the regular and close correspondence with Jesuits Scheiner, Greenberger, and numerous other Jesuit scholars. Numerous! The missionaries of the order in China occasionally asked his advice in difficult mathematical problems, and Father Zucchi, the inventor of the reflecting telescope, presented him with the first telescope which Kepler could call his own. When at first he was unable to get his almanac printed, the Jesuit college at Ingolstadt, Ingolstadt was the town where the Illuminati was created.
Adam Weishaupt, yes.
Yeah, at once assumed responsibility for the publication of this book. Moreover, the fathers came to his assistance in material difficulties. When in 1600 Kepler was banished from Graz, and then went to Prague, Father Decker interceded on his behalf. Father Lang obtained permission for him to take up residence in Munich, and Father Gulden provided him with financial assistance and secured him introductions to influential people. The only thing now is missing, that who was the Jesuit in Prague. Is it too much exaggerated to say that Johannes Kepler was on a mission?
No.
Gulden endeavored to...
That fits perfectly, Mike.
Yeah. Gulden endeavored to convince the scholar Kepler that the Reformation was a mistake, and that the Catholic faith was the only true one. He presumed to set Gulden was it to assume that a handful of novelty seekers should suddenly claim to know better than all the early fathers, martyrs, bishops, monks, universities, and synods of the church. Forgive the frankness, wrote Gulden in conclusion. Yeah, that's where I started to copy everything, because we will never get to the nitty. You see, you know it all. You know the source. You can grasp on the book. You can loan the book on archive at the moment. I hope to have the ability in the next days to copy more of that book. But I think we know what we need to know about it. Yeah, there's always a Jesuit behind the curtain.
There we go.
Yeah, it's just the Jesuit Ignaz Paradis or Pardis S.J. made his most important scientific contribution not in his writings, but in his correspondence. It is there that we find the objections that Pardis expressed to Newton concerning his theory of colors and the Experimentum Crucis, objections that enabled Newton to clarify certain difficult points. Pardis was a temperate and courteous critic of Newton. He was a vigorous intellect, as it is evident from
vigorous intellect, yes.
As is evident from his pedagogical writings and his contacts with the pioneers of geometry. Yeah, correspondence to Isaac Newton, etc., etc., etc. The numbers of reference to Jesuitical mathematicians and astronomers is extensive. The same can be said of Descartes and many others. No. Parties, for instance, in a growing dispute between Newton and Christian Huygens, was able to bring an unseemly argument to an early conclusion. His correspondence reflected a vigorous intact which forced Newton to clarify.
You know what he's telling you without saying it?
Yeah.
You do, don't you? You know what he's telling you without saying it. He's telling you that this is the work of their Ratio Studiorum.
Yeah, and you see that Newton gets the fame and nobody takes the blame, but cui bono? The agenda.
That's right.
The agenda.
So all the Jesuits work for that.
Yeah, it's
and
a
they don't care who gets the limelight.
They do it all for their society. They do it all for their general.
For the greater glory of
of God.
Satan. Yeah. That's what they don't tell you.
Yeah.
The satanic system. Yeah.
Yeah. Even the people who hated the Jesuits, like D'Alembert. Yeah. He asked the Jesuit to help. It's unbelievable, that book. It's really interesting.
Incredible.
You see, maybe it is also fraud because it's originated by SJ. You see, but nevertheless, you see that there are some.
That's the thing, you know.
That's the names who are.
They're the masters of intrigue.
Yeah,
right?
But you see that the names are popping up, and you see that if you combine everything in the last dozens of sessions, you only come to the conclusion that there must be something about the Ratio Studiorum, and just but when they are. You see that so many things coming up.
Isn't that something how the truth is in the face of an average layperson? You tell them the truth, they think you're crazy. You think you're out of your mind.
Yeah.
Well, that's because there's been this influence on the world for so long, and people aren't reading their scriptures and don't know the main story here.
They're making fun of you. They're making absolutely a clown out of you.
Well,
they think that they think that we are the clowns.
Remember 1 John.
Yeah.
Remember 1 John, what I just read.
Yeah. You see, when the CIA.
Marvel not, my brethren, if the world hate you.
You see, when the CIA, so-called CIA government, if it is, I think it is an official thing, they just, I don't know who's coming up with all this symbolism and card games and everything. As you see that everybody's making fun of the few people who actually wanted to know the truth.
Oh yeah, here they got the Templars. Oh yeah. Man, oh man.
Yeah, what's CIA.government? Is it not an official? Yeah, Catholic is okay. CIA, yeah, but don't fool me here. Yeah, okay, these are your friends.
We are the nations. Well, Michael, did you know when I first was encountering Jörg Glissman, he invited me to a session he did on a little pamphlet that Walt Stickle had put together, and the title of this particular work that he took, I think it was out of Code Word Babylon, was how America became a Jesuit enclave. We live in a sea of Jesuitism over here in the United States, and we haven't got a clue until we've studied this. And then it starts to make sense. But the problem is, it scares the pants off everyone that encounters it.
I thought we could handle so much things in this session, and you see that we are doing it more than 2 hours now. My.
Well, it's a pretty monumental find, but at the same time, who's going to take it serious?
I know,
who's
but
going to really understand?
You have to ask for guidance in this world. You have to compare everything with the Bible, and you know that they are lying you straight in the face. But the thing is that if you combine the name and you look at the names, you research the things individually, and then you got the big picture. It's like a puzzle.
That's it.
What we are doing is puzzling from the beginning. And now the more sessions we are doing, the more clearer the picture gets, actually. The Jesuits are not the only one who are claiming this. You see that there's a Jesuitical Science and the Ratio Historiorum and all the official published Fourth Vow. You know what they are. This is a military order.
It's a military.
So when a military order comes up with scientific things and with a Ratio Historiorum, what do you think what their purpose is? To educate the people? A military order?
Sure. Get them while they're young. Yep.
Yeah, but this is a psyop.
This is the ways of death,
psychological warfare. This is psyop. Yeah, this has nothing to do with killing people. It's just killing their soul. It's a psyop. You see, the official.
Look at this, Michael. America is a mercenary country now, full of mercenaries. Here where I live, they're not nice. Yeah, they kill other people. They are murderers.
Now that's what actually money. That Ratio Historiorum is psyop. Yeah, there's nothing else. You see, they deceive the people, and this is just a psychological warfare. This has nothing to do with killing people physically, but mentally. You see that they put you so much learning against learning and all the other things. But you see, you can't expect the truth from them. You see that this their truth, sure, but their truth is not of God, but from the other side, which is the adversary of truth. So what do you learn there? I found a book here, so come to an end maybe. Decoding the Stars, a biography of Angelo Secchi, Jesuit and scientist. In page 73. It's from Ilenia Chinichi. In May, Secchi publicly repeated Foucault's experiment in the presence of the most distinguished professors of the city by suspending a lead ball with an iron wire from the ceiling of St. Ignatius Church. The length of the pendulum was 31.95 meters. It is hardly likely that such an experiment could have been carried out without the Pope's permission. Indeed, though Secchi did not openly mention him, it is possible that, given his interest in science, Pius IX himself may have been suggested carrying out the experiment. Given that the deviation of the plane is influenced by many factors, example given, the width of the pendulum swing, the quality of the suspension system, air resistance, etc., the experiment was aimed at studying how physical constraints affect the geometrical law. Secchi thoroughly studied every detail and took every precaution to limit any cause of error. He found that the swings were not in a perfect plane, but along a very flattened cone whose horizontal section followed an ovoid spiral. In fact, as the oscillation faded, its major axis tended to rotate in the direction of the rotation of the Earth. The rotation of the Earth. Secchi summarized the experiment in a letter to the Royal Astronomical Society to London. Quote, I have repeated Monsieur Léon Foucault's experiment with a pendulum 31 meters long and a weight of 28 kilograms. I have measured the angles with the greatest care and have constantly found the deviation such as it should be according to theory. There is, however, a slight difference in the motion at the beginning and at the end of the series. At the beginning, the angles are in a few minutes in excess, and at the end, a few minutes in defect. The errors, to be sure, are not larger than the etc. Probable errors of observation, but as they are constantly the same way, they seem to indicate a physical cause. Secchi concluded that there was a systematic error. I believe, he said, that physical causes, and particularly the resistance of the wire to flexure, are the main cause of the enlargement of the ellipse. Secchi did not study this phenomenon again, but in 1930, Frater, Johann Stein confirmed Secchi's conclusions. Yeah, who else, huh? It seems to us that Father Secchi was fully right. Indeed, it may be added that all of the increase of these angles can be attributed to physical causes. If these forces did not exist at all, the amplitude of the oscillations and consequently also the minor axis of the ellipse would be constant. Secchi took advantage of the pendulum experiment to make measurements of the local acceleration of gravity and found a value of g equals 9.8042 meters per second square. He considered this result to be an approximation and hoped that it would stimulate other scientists to carry out gravimetric measurements with better instruments. In fact, in other countries, because of the geological constitution of the soil, it is suspected that there are, etc., 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 etc. Yeah, so the approval of the Pope. It is hardly likely that such an experiment could have been carried out without the Pope's permission. Yeah, interesting stuff.
Very much.
Yeah, induction coil. This is, I want to look it up when in induction coil, I think it was in use. Induction coil is a type of electrical transformers. Yeah. Yeah, you see? See what I mean? When did Léon Foucault came up? 1851?
Yeah.
15 years before induction coils were already in use. Just an example. So that was the time of big inventions. Big inventions. This is a book here of Principi Astronomica from the Collegio Romano from IHS Roma 1862. Yeah. Astronomy lectures notes by Secchi on the left front page, on the right page 97 with the illustrations of the planet's motions around the sun. Sure. Look at the symbol of, yeah, this is not the complete symbol here. No? It would be better with the sun around them. And that's what David Nicaro says. The enemy is using the heliocentric universe model to push their evolution doctrine, to subvert the Genesis account and the validity of the world. And now they're using flat earth theory, etc. They're using every grand deception. And therefore, I thought I would go into his book, but I'm too tired. It's midnight now, and I'm feeling like past midnight.
Yeah, isn't that something?
Yeah.
Isn't that something?
Yeah. So what the people are learning, of course, when you think about the fact that the ratio sterorium is in use for more than 400 years now, what they are actually learning is Jesuitical science.
For sure. Oh yeah. And we have something, a publication here in the States called Scientific American, Michael. And I have their encyclopedia. And if you look Jesuit up in this Scientific American encyclopedia from the 1900s, it will flat out lie to you. It does not give you a European definition of Jesuit. It gives you an American version of Jesuit, which is completely contrary to the European one.
Now, how about this explanation?
Yeah, there we go. That sums it up.
It's not our explanation.
No, it's been around for a long, long time. A very, very long time.
The end justifies the means.
Not quite 500 years. We're getting closer, aren't we?
Yeah.
Getting closer.
But I think we made so many remarkable points today with the fourth wow, with the all the mentioning of all the ties of Jesuits behind the scene, behind the curtain. Yeah, you see that everybody who talks about
everywhere you look, you see
a
a
shadow,
Jesuit.
government or something like this. Yeah, what kind of color is a shadow? Is it black? I think. I
Yeah,
suppose.
correct. Mhm.
Yeah. So who are these men in black?
You can't see them. That's the point. You can't see them until God has opened your eyes.
Who wears black?
And I'm speaking of our Messiah, Jesus Christ, not
but
the adversary.
Yeah, but the man in black, you see, that's not nothing to do with Will Smith.
Oh, sure.
They claim and they laugh in your face. Has nothing to do with any.
I've never watched that movie.
No, I just want to point out. You see, the real men in black are the pastors and priests.
Oh, for sure.
That's
true.
my point. Yeah, these are the men in black.
Sure.
Oh, look at here. They're even admitting it.
Yeah.
That's the thing. These guys get away with everything. They are on a scene of a crime, and they get away with that. There is nobody who can judge you if they put out a false doctrine. You don't have to believe it. But if you hear a repeating doctrine for thousands and thousands of times in the school, in universities, on the radio, in the media, in the newspaper, on the television set, you believe it. Kind of feeling resembled at a current situation, maybe? Something similar happening at the moment in 2021, 2022? All over repetition, like the 87,000 swings of the pendulum? Isn't that kind of a spiritual exercise out there? How much you can take unless you say, okay, I'm giving in. I submit. Yeah, that is a wild ride at the moment with the script here. But I really hope that has some effect on people, that actually they begin to see that they have been fooled all of their lives when they go to the internet, so-called knowledge, and in the textbooks, you see they're all so very superficial. But can you imagine that takes me
put up that image, Michael, if you would please, of the Illuminati cards. Did you have that on? I know you did like a image search on Google and you had all that. Michael and I were talking right before the session today, and yeah, that terrorist nuke one right there, please. I mean, you know, how long ago were the Illuminati cards made? Oh yeah, 1990s. Okay. I wonder how many of our listeners were alive during the 90s. I would imagine almost the vast majority of our listeners were, you know, our age or older, Michael, and they've been through a lot in their lives. When they see 9/11 happen, you know, it hit them pretty hard. Hit me pretty hard. I'm sure it hit you guys in Europe hard too. And you know, that image right there almost looks like what really happened when that second plane hit. It almost looks the same.
Yeah, but it's a nuke and not a plane.
Isn't that something?
You mean it's a nuke designed as a plane? Yeah, but you see that I just want to point out that everything which is happening has been planned before. There's nothing happening by accident. I think it was from Franklin Roosevelt who said that in politics nothing happens by accident, but there is a purpose behind it. And so it's the same with the so-called science. It's always something behind it. It's the same as in the case of Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa. He got away with that because he had the backup, he had the support of some church, of an abbot who was one of his occult teachers. An abbot who is an occult teacher, who is supposed to teach the Holy Scripture. And it's the same with the Jesuits. So if you take the Benedictine order of the Dominicans or of the Jesuits, you see it does not make any big difference. There is always some clergyman behind it. Somebody has to fund it, has to give the finance, and somebody has to have the knowledge. So the people are mostly educated in the Roman Catholic system. That's the thing. And even if you are a Protestant on the outside, yeah, you are howling with the Wolfus on the inside to feed your family, to make it in this world, to get a little bit of fame, and everybody's talking about Johannes Kepler, and nobody's talking about Riccoli and Clavius. These men are something like not existent. Because it's all the agenda to point it out to the lay people. It is just these guys came up with some ideas. And we have the same in one of the next sessions when we are coming down to the 19th and 20th century scientists. We have always the same. There's always a Jesuit as an inspiration source or directly behind it or connected with it. It's always the same. Because they have the power, they had the universities, they had the finance of the Roman Catholic system. Without the Roman Catholic system, the Jesuits would have failed. That would be my suggestion. Because they needed the backup, they needed the information highway, they needed the Secret Service, they needed the finance, they needed the connections. And they got everything. They got carte blanche from the Pope. They got carte blanche.
They always have, Michael. That's the thing, at least in the duration of recent and recorded history since the time of Martin Luther's,
if they would come up
against the church when that started.
If they would come up with a curriculum now that they claim that the sun is green with the pink dots, I think that within 40 years, everybody would not believe their own eyes, but would believe the teaching from Big Brother, from all the television sets who are saying now, oh no, this was just an illusion. Thousands of years you were coming an illusion because your eyes, they cannot detect between yellow and between green with pink dots. And you cannot prove it because you don't have that sophisticated measurement tools. Yeah, that's it. You see that it's just a half a joke here. But actually with that power on that media behind it and all that magic of that magic lantern called from Athanasius Kircher, the last man who knew it all, so that we absolutely, the people have been mesmerized, have been hypnotized with pendulums, with magic, with fornication, with lies, with deception, with promotion, with propaganda, etc. All the Catholic names. And therefore, there are just a few loonies like us spending the night, and I think that script took almost 9 months of all of my spare time.
Well, Michael, it is the very final touches of the Roman beast that we're living in. We're in the very end of the Counter-Reformation, where this system has to throw down the gauntlet on free thinking associated with the Bible. They just have to do it. They have to make the world hate us, Michael. And that's what's happened.
Yeah, and you see that they hate us, especially in Matthew and in other chapters.
Absolutely. But yeah, John and Mark and Luke.
Yeah.
The
Man in Black. Yeah, the real Man in Black. The real Man in Black.
Well, the testimony of Jesus Christ is going to be really where we need to spend the main effort. The Jesuits are one thing, but the Jesuits culminate all the paganism and all the power of Satan in this world. That's what they do. And if they don't know that, that's just too bad for them. But you know what? They've made this world Jesuit, Michael. Our people are Jesuit.
This will be the last big script that I will ever intend to do. This is my intention. I don't know what there is any purpose for me, or if there's any task, but really I want to get back to the truth. It's so exhausting to go into all the lies here. It's fascinating on the one hand, but on the other hand, you see it takes so much time. And I hope that you, dear listeners, will have some benefit of it, that yeah, you can really see that this is not a joke, which is what is going on there.
Well,
they have
yeah.
the power. Yeah, they
It
have
is
the power and they're
fascinating,
using
Michael,
it.
but it's just devastating. Yeah, they have the power, they're using it, and they use it to glorify this system called Roman Catholicism.
Yeah, it's been said in the book of Revelation, he will wear out the saints.
Yes, that's exactly what's happening.
Yeah.
We get worn out.
Yeah, also the book of Daniel is a revelation, so to speak.
Well, it's a prophetic book. Book of Daniel is the
that's
prophetic book of the Old Covenant.
Yeah, finally somebody who gets it. You see that I thought I was a little bit alone in my opinion that Daniel was not one of the prophets.
It's so important we study our Bible and our scriptures, Michael. We can never emphasize this enough to our listeners, you know, and our brethren. Really, you're our brethren, and we love you because we know that, you know, what's in us is only partial. When we come together as believers and we share our faith, you know, as it says in scripture, wherever 2 or 3 of you are gathered in my name, in the midst I shall be. Yeah, Daniel chapter 7, verse 25, and he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and shall think to change times and laws, and they shall be given into his hand until a time and times and the dividing of time. My, is that something important right there? Time, times, and the dividing of time is 3.5 years. And also, here we go, Michael.
I want to make the point that Daniel was not one of the prophets of the Old Testament. And now somebody would say, "Oh, I'm getting can hardly breath. What does he mean by that? Is he apostate?" No, I'm just speaking that for me, accept the facts of Moses, etc. Okay, but from the prophets of the Old, on the books of the prophets of the Old Testament, for me, Daniel is the prophet, because
correct.
He was the one who came up with the 70 week of Daniel, or his 70 week. So he was the one who had the biggest prophecy to proclaim. That's
well, rather, Michael, give credit where credit is due. Daniel was so subservient to the Spirit of Almighty God that he sent the angel Michael, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. And Michael gave him the prophecy. So it came from the angel, actually. The angel of God from heaven came down and gave it to Daniel. So yes, Daniel received that prophecy from the Most High. So, I mean, it's incredible, Michael, because we got to give it all back to God. All the glory belongs to Him, because we are just, you know, we're living in a very difficult place, and He's given us a great commission here on earth to fulfill, and that is to bring the gospel to lost souls. And that is where the gold is, my friends. The gold is His salvation that He gives freely to His saints, those who have real faith, those who ask for faith from Christ, those who seek Him in private, those who pray to Him in private, those who know that salvation doesn't come from men, it only comes through reading their scriptures and knowing the, you know, the hidden faith that lies in the Holy Spirit. You have to earn that faith through your, you know, you read the scriptures, it explains it all to you. It does. It just puts it all out there. But the book of Daniel is a very profound book. It's the most profound book and the most important book of the Bible, Michael, because it ties the old covenant with the new covenant. And some would say, no, that's not true, but that's how I see it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. But the saints of the Most High shall take the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever and ever. Forever, even forever and ever. Yeah.
So thanks
for... And then verse 19, Michael, then I would know the truth of the fourth beast. We're living in the kingdom of the fourth beast right now, which was diverse from all the others, exceeding dreadful, whose teeth were of iron, his nails of brass, which devour and break in pieces and stamp the residue with his feet. And we are in that kingdom of the feet, because it's the toes that get hit. Remember? In that metal man image? In the dream of Nebuchadnezzar, was it? Yeah, it's really something. It's really something.
So it's 1 a.m. here in Germany, and I apologize for me being tired.
No, it's all right. That's good. We got to call it quits. It's a long session, Michael. Yeah. Maybe one of our longest.
I don't know. I'm afraid to look it up.
Me too.
Okay,
yeah,
so
you can't just make these short, Michael. It doesn't work. You know, there's just way too much, way too hard to explain all of this unless you lay it all out. And yeah, we don't have so much time, but yet we really should be spending more time with this, you know, because this is where it's at, Michael. And I feel that way all the time when I'm doing these sessions and we get this far. It's like, wow, we really came somewhere. We really made a journey today, Michael. We really, put on those sandals and started, you know, walking through some troubled land here. It is. I mean, you read Revelation 12, it speaks of this troubled land that we live in. It's very troubled. Yeah, Michael. So thank you for taking the time to do these with me. And should we wrap it up?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So I think we covered all our scriptures and everything. So we'll catch up with you next time. Maranatha.